Okay, good morning. We might get started as all the latecomers come through. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce Sue Ellson to you. I actually recommended that Sue come in to speak at the conference. I first heard Sue speak 3 years ago in Melbourne, and 3 years ago in Melbourne I was with a school and we didn't even have a LinkedIn account. And so when I heard Sue speak, I just thought immediately, here is a woman who is so passionate about a subject, and Sue started it looking into LinkedIn about 10 years ago, and she decided, and I think she's got this amazing entrepreneurial flair, as well as being very empathetic to people and the journeys and the stories that they're going on and wanting to connect people, that Sue seemed to make it her personal mission to basically become an expert in LinkedIn. And I can honestly say that she is that person. She personally, and I've got to know Sue over the years, and even again more last night, I've learnt some really more interesting things. Sue's got 2 children, 20 and 21, 22. Sue is passionate about teaching and connecting people, and Sue, I think we saw that this came when Sue migrated from South Australia to Melbourne and landed in a city, and I think a few of us have been in this situation where you don't have connections, and sometimes you don't have family, and you've got to start again, and you've got to find schools, and you've got to find a job. So Sue's natural passion then was to try and connect people. So once a month, Sue to this day runs a free class for migrants in Melbourne who basically want to settle, and as she says, find friends, but that sounds a bit lame, but actually in a practical skill way, through skills like LinkedIn and many other skills, Sue actually shares that with them so that they can feel more settled in Melbourne and they can feel more connected and get on with their lives. So that just tells you the sort of, I think, passion that runs deep inside Sue, and what we're getting to hear today is the practical application of that through LinkedIn. And because LinkedIn, like all these social media channels, constantly changes the rules on what you can and cannot do, and they come up with great things that you can do, I think what's refreshing about this, and I certainly do a yearly check-in with Sue with whatever school I'm with, and also for myself, are we making the most out of LinkedIn? Because it's such a great, accessible, affordable resource. Sue's also written 3 books. She's got one of them up here today, 120 Ways to Achieve Your Purpose with LinkedIn. So I really think that these next 40 minutes, you're going to get a lot of great information that you can take away immediately tonight back to your own personal LinkedIn account and also to the schools. So please join me in welcoming Sue from Melbourne.
Thank you, Deanne, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Some of you may have noticed me floating around yesterday, and one of the things that I pride myself on is how much I like learning, and I go to between 1 and 4 events per week, believe it or not, as well as stuff that I do online and webinars and podcasts and all sorts of things. And what I've been really impressed with about this EducatePlus conference is how great the speakers have been. So much information's been shared, because a lot of conferences that I go to, it's a thinly disguised sales pitch, and as a learner myself, I get very frustrated. So reflecting on Carolyn's comments this morning about how much is related to my walk and talk, well, this particular presentation is going to be mostly about content. There's an enormous amount of things that I'd like to share with you that you can actually take back to your schools and that you can actually implement. And one of the things that I focus on very strongly in my book is this will all be a waste of time if you don't take any action. So I really encourage you to consider implementing some of these things. I'm also going to offer you a free digital copy of the book, so you all have access to that. Just leave your details with me. I'm video recording this, I'm audio recording this, and you can get all the slides. So anybody else who you think would benefit from this information, you're welcome to share it. And also, if you look at my sueellson.com website, you'll see there's heaps of information on there that's all free and downloadable, including the EducatePlus presentation I did in 2014 at the International Conference. So as it says in the program, that's what I do. I joined LinkedIn on the 21st of December 2003, and I started consulting on it in 2008. And the reason I picked LinkedIn is because it is most likely to be connected with how I can best serve other people. And one of the really interesting things is that what I love about it is it just keeps changing and growing. And because I love learning so much, there's always something new and something else that I can do about it. And I did take a year off after running my monthly events just to write the books, but all 3 books were actually published last year, which was my best year ever. I just loved writing, it was a lot of fun. So obviously today I want to focus on the information that's going to be most useful to this audience. So there's heaps of things I could talk about in relation to LinkedIn, and I've only got a finite amount of time. So I've really tried to channel your schools into my brain and say, what's the best way that you can use LinkedIn for your purpose? And just to give you a bit more background, there's over 500 million members on LinkedIn and over 8 million in Australia. So that's the second most popular social media platform after Facebook. And obviously, a lot of the people who go through private schools are going to be people in professional occupations. And there was some sort of statistic a few years ago that said, you know, most of the people on LinkedIn earn more than $100,000 a year. But don't discount the fact that it's still very useful for everybody who wants to have a digital presence. Because I've written an article on LinkedIn for tradespeople. There's not many tradies on there. So as you can imagine, if you're a tradesperson, you're on LinkedIn, people are going to be able to verify your bona fides much quicker. Because what's going to happen is, if somebody Googles your name, your LinkedIn profile is likely to come up. So people are going to Google you at parties, they're going to Google, apparently a teacher told me recently, the first thing that parents do when they find out that this person is going to be their teacher, they Google them, they stalk them on Facebook, you know, they do the whole thing. So at least this way, you get to choose what you publish about yourself. And there's a lot of women in this audience, and I find that the biggest challenge I have working with women is they don't talk about their achievements. So please, this is not a time to be vulnerable. This is a time to share your story, and it's actually a time to focus on what you're actually good at and have a record of that on your LinkedIn profile. It's a huge database. So if any of you have had any idea about what a database is, they'll talk about garbage in and garbage out. So if you don't put your information into the database, you cannot be found from that database. So if your school's not on the database, your school is not going to be able to be found. So you really need to be in there. And then, you know, everybody says if you sell, you don't say too much, but because it's a database, you have to put those words in. So if you've got a fantastic music program, I mean, you want to put music as a big focus of your school, if that's your point of difference. So people can find that out. And also you need to think about the algorithms. So if you thought, well, you know, people are looking for a music school, or are they looking for a music teacher, you've got to work out which words you're going to have, you know, on your own profile, as well as what's on the school's profile. There is also no such thing as job security, you know, and this is what I found out when I moved from Adelaide to Melbourne, and I got sacked when I was pregnant. As soon as my daughter was born, then everybody wanted me, and I thought this is really bizarre, because I'd worked in HR, and I worked out that, you know, when you're 40, you're fat, 40 and frumpy apparently, and, you know, you get relegated to this, you know, not employable category. And I didn't want to be at that point at the age of 40. And I'm now 52, and I'm certainly not fat, 40 and frumpy or any of those things anymore, but I've kept myself learning, and, you know, I have a network, and that's what keeps giving me opportunities. So I don't have a regular gig, you know, I have to earn my money by attracting opportunities to me. So I have to put my details out there so that people can find me. And what your students need to do is, from the very start of their working life, they need to build that network. And my dad worked for Ansett Airlines for 40 years. It collapsed 3 days before his 60th birthday. So then he lost everybody he knew overnight, and he didn't get his gold watch, which he'd been hanging out for. So with LinkedIn, if all your students connect with one another, their email address can change, their phone number can change, but they can still remain connected to the people that they've gone to school with, if they so choose. I mean, there might be some they don't want to connect with. And also, you know, you may have a policy on writing recommendations for your students. I mean, I know an academic in Melbourne, and he willingly writes recommendations for his students on their LinkedIn profile, which again publicises the school, because somebody looks at that person's profile and said somebody from that school wrote a recommendation. You know, that's a good strategy too. You can maintain relationships by having a semi-active presence. So, you know, Deanne just popped up and had an announcement, so I thought, oh, I'll just say hello to Deanne. So I didn't have to think, what's Deanne doing, you know, schedule her in my diary, ring her and so on. LinkedIn just keeps our little relationship ticking over, because if I keep publishing and she keeps seeing something, she's reminded that I exist. I can attract opportunities. So what I was finding is, I teach at a number of academic institutions, most frequently at the Centre for Adult Education in Melbourne, so it's a very vocational environment, but also at Monash and RMIT and General Assembly, which is a real digital sort of campus. And what I found was, because I was having those at the top of my profile, I wasn't attracting clients, so I shuffled them down to the bottom, and then I started attracting my clients again. So you've got to really think about what sort of opportunities you want to come to you. Also, you need to think about it as a publishing powerhouse. So if you write posts, they can go viral within LinkedIn. So if you've just won an award last night at EducatePlus Awards, you could definitely share that, both from the school profile and from the personal profile. And if you send it out as a post, it's more likely to get a lot more views than if you just put it on the school profile. But if anybody looks at the school profile, they're then going to be able to see you've won awards, and that's going to look good for you there. So you might not get as much visibility the time you publish it, but you'll definitely get the visibility over the longer term. And if you write an article, it can actually appear in Google search results. So one of my pieces has had over 50,000 views because they upgraded the LinkedIn user interface, and I came up #1, page 1 of Google search results for this article that I had published on LinkedIn. So quite often I'll choose to publish on LinkedIn rather than publish on my own website, because I'll attract more people to that content by publishing on LinkedIn. It's a due diligence verification tool. So if a parent is checking out the school, they're going to have a look at all of your online profiles, and LinkedIn, your school page, is likely to come up on the first 1 or 2 pages of Google search results, particularly if it's active. So that's a good way to bump down those terrible articles from, you know, the local paper, if you can get your LinkedIn profile appearing on that first page of Google search results. A very good alumni management and research tool to find your alumni, and also a careers tool. So I really encourage you to go back to your schools and talk to your careers teacher and just ask them, what are you guys doing with LinkedIn? And I'll talk more about that as we go through the slides. Now, LinkedIn for you. I always find that when I do presentations, if I start working with you first and then the rest, you know, it's like the oxygen mask on the person first, and then we can help the school. Privacy is the biggest question that I get when I do presentations on LinkedIn. You know, I'm concerned about my privacy. If you are concerned about your privacy, the #1 recommendation I have for you is not to include your mobile phone number on your LinkedIn profile. Because when you do that, particularly if you put it in the phone number box, it matches everybody who's in your phone to LinkedIn and tries to connect you with all these people and so on and so forth. That can be quite confronting. So if you are concerned about privacy, just don't put your mobile phone number on your LinkedIn profile. But definitely put your email address, definitely put your school email address, and definitely put your private email address as well. And I usually recommend that, you know, if you're in the job market, you would put your personal email as your primary email address, because people want to liaise directly with you personally. But if you're in admissions or something like that and you want people to come to your work email, well, then you could obviously use your work email as your primary email address. Also, if a crisis occurs and you're really nervous that, you know, you don't want people checking you out on LinkedIn, you do not have to delete your account. You can actually make it visible to no one. And it's just a setting. So don't ever think that if a disaster has occurred, I've got to delete my account. You can actually just make it visible. And who to connect to. So I get a lot of requests from all sorts of strange people, you know, would you like to connect with me? I definitely check all of their profiles first, but for me running networks, I'm better off with more people to be connected to me. So I'm quite happy to most of the time say yes. But if anybody's bad or naughty, I actually report them immediately. And I feel it's my duty to report bad behaviour, because that bad behaviour wrecks the whole platform. So yeah, I don't encourage spamming under any circumstances. How much detail you put on your LinkedIn profile depends on what your purpose is and what you're trying to attract. So the video guy, you could talk about video and production and films, you could use all of these words so that you could be found for all of them. But one thing that is essential for all of you to do, and it was interesting because Deanne said, can you give me examples of really good profiles? And I kept looking at principals all over Sydney and there was no good examples. So, there's plenty of scope for you guys to really improve your presence on LinkedIn. But one of the things that most people haven't done is just change their public profile URL. And this is a really easy thing to do. So I'll just go into LinkedIn and show you how to do it. So this is what happens when you sign into LinkedIn. And I apologise if you see anything inappropriate because this is live and I can't predict what's going to appear on the screen, but I'll assume nothing terrible is going to happen. And from your own profile, over here on the right-hand side, it says edit your public profile, and that is where you change it to just your name. Now, if you've got a very common name, your name may not be available, so you'll have to put in a number or perhaps a dash between it or something like that. But it is really important that you change this URL to your own name, because what that does is it tells Google this person really exists. It's not somebody with the name Mary Smith, it's actually the Mary Smith. So really important that you just change that public profile URL. And then what you can do is you can add that to your email signature, perhaps, if that's the school's social media policy. You could add it to your resume, you can put it on your business card, there's all sorts of places that you can do it, but it looks much better if it's been personalised and it's just your name on there. Okay. The next thing is you need to have a good quality photograph, and what people do business with and how they relate to you is through your eyes. So your eyes needs to be the focus. So don't wear, really large earrings or a purple shirt or something that just looks really odd and everybody's looking at that instead of your eyes. That should be the focus. I also recommend that you are fully clothed, so not wearing a low-cut top. You'd be surprised how many women look, in my view, inappropriate on LinkedIn. Because what happens is the eye will naturally go down with the skin rather than look at the eyes. So you want the eyes to be the focus. And one of my clients, even the men, you have to be careful because he had a hairy chest. So we had to Photoshop the hairs off of his neck, for his photograph. So no skin, we don't want to see skin, we just want to see the eyes and the face. And you can change your background image as well. And your school may have a policy that, they invite you to put a particular background on the top of your LinkedIn profile. So if we just quickly have a look at mine, you'll see that on my LinkedIn profile, I have put the logos of the organisations that I'm a member of, and then I've put all of the websites that I run. And that will look okay even when it's on the mobile device because it's all in the centre of the image. So, if you're going to have a school logo or something, you just want to make sure it's in the middle and above where the photograph shows so that you can make it look reasonable on there. This headline here is where all of your keywords go in. And you can see that I've got quite a lot of information in there. Now, on the desktop version, which is where I recommend that you change your LinkedIn profile, you've got 120 characters that you can fill in there. But you'll see I've actually got a lot more than 120 characters in there because I've worked out this little hack, and if you update it on your mobile phone, you get about 200 characters. So, this is a really good technique to get as many words in so that I can appear in as many search results as possible for what I'm offering. So again, your school may include in the social media policy, we'd like you to mention the name of our school and our tagline or our other keywords or something like that. Now you can't insist that all the staff change their LinkedIn profile to what the school recommends, but you can definitely make some suggestions as this is how we would like you to consider updating your LinkedIn profile. You could also, in the right-hand side, you can include the school website. So here under websites, you can see I've chosen 3. So my 3 main websites, my own personal one, my first one in 2001, and then my book website. But you could encourage all of your staff to link to the school website here by choosing here and choosing other. And that way you can write the name of the school in here and put the website address for the school, and then that way your school has all these backlinks directly to you via LinkedIn. So if somebody Googles the school, you know, even all the staff can start appearing in search results because you're telling them that that's what you're connected with. So another really great way to generate some backlinks for your school. Okay, in your experience, I also encourage you to have a definition of your school. So all of my roles that I've had, I say established in, so if it was Ravenswood 1901, Ravenswood School for Girls is, and you have that description. So again, you can provide that to all of your staff and say, this is how we'd like you to describe your school on your LinkedIn profile. And also in your contact, yeah, that's what I've already shown you. When you choose where you work, your school should appear in the drop-down box if they've got a school profile, what's actually called a university profile. And so that way it makes sure that you're connected to your school as well. So if I added a new job and said I was working at Ravenswood, you know, I could choose it as my employer there. If you're an alumni, there may also be a group that the school has, so you can join that as well. And that way you can be kept in touch with what's happening. And if you're a subject matter expert, I really encourage you to start thinking about writing articles on your own LinkedIn profile as well around the area of your expertise. And also you really need to set a good example. If you go back to the school and say we should do things better on LinkedIn, but you don't update your own LinkedIn profile, you can't really expect everybody else to do it. And also, if you want the students to do it, you really need to make sure the principal and the heads of schools have all got good quality LinkedIn profiles. Otherwise, they're going to say, well, why should we? You know, you don't have a good quality profile yourself. Now, LinkedIn is suitable for anybody over the age of 16. So all year 11 and 12 students, I think, should have one. Of course, my daughter filled in her own profile. And then, of course, what did I do? Spend another 10 hours on it to update it. Now, the good news is she went overseas to a US summer camp. And then within 3 weeks of returning, she had 3 job interviews. So, and my son, he's on LinkedIn too. And he, without my assistance, you know, because I just filled in a basic one for him, he managed to secure 15 job interviews in 1 week. Now, out of all of the people I've ever met, I've never met anybody who's managed to secure 15 job interviews in 1 week. And this is a boy who actually left school before the end of year 10. So, you know, I really want to encourage you to think about there's many creative ways to use LinkedIn for students. I recommend that you encourage all your students to do the same things as what I've suggested for you, you know, personalising your URL, linking to websites. Some students have with their own website so they can link to their own blog or whatever. Invite them to join the alumni group before they leave the school so that you've already got them connected to the school before they leave. Make sure that they also include descriptions for their honours and award. They may have won the C.J. Reynolds Award for Geography, but what does that mean? Does that recognise outstanding academic achievement or fantastic research or something like that? So if they've won these amazing awards, they need to describe them on their LinkedIn profile as well. You also need to remember that 75% of decision makers will Google you before a job interview and 95% will Google and check Facebook before they offer you a job. So for your students, again, really important that they have a digital presence, and also for people over 35 to have a digital presence as well, because a lot of people will assume you don't exist if you don't have an online presence. Also, up to 85% of business is done by referral, and up to 90% of jobs are not advertised. And also, even more importantly, the best employees are friends and family members of existing employees. So, you know, as a referral source for new staff for your school, it can be really, really helpful as well. Your students could find mentors and international experts in their areas of interest, and they can also update their career interests. So if they decide they want to do a gap year and go and work in London, what they can do here in the jobs section is they can choose update career interests and talk about it, and then they can change their locations, or they could even say they're in London now so that they can start coming up in London search results. So, you know, I've mentioned here that I'm willing to travel by mentioning that I'm available for these other locations, and I'm on for recruiters, but I'm not interested in full-time work because obviously I do lots of other things, so I'm not suitable for full-time, but you know, students can do this here in career interests as well. Are there any quick questions before I move on?
So we're talking about kids at school.
Yep.
Getting onto LinkedIn and having a profile, then connecting with, are you saying with teachers and parents?
Oh, look, that's, you can create a social media policy around that, and I know, for instance, with the Catholic schools, there's a requirement that they don't connect with students, you know, on Facebook, for example. So I know you can't do that. So your school's going to have to make some choices around that. But what I'm trying to encourage the students to do is to start building their network as soon as possible. So I've heard of students who've already started connecting to the friends and family members of their parents, you know, who are top CEOs in organisations and that kind of thing. Because I believe you should have a minimum of 60 connections. So, you know, if you can get your students to have 60 connections, a completed LinkedIn profile and join the alumni group all before they leave for graduation, woohoo, you know, that's going to help. So yeah, it would depend on your school policy on that. Okay, all right, so we'll move on. So a little bit of housekeeping first. So the first thing that your school has to do is have an accurately completed school profile, which is actually called a university profile. So don't think that you have to be a university to be a school. It's just the language that LinkedIn uses. So you will be called a university, and I do recommend that you have at least 3 people who have access to that account, because if one's sick, one's on holidays, you know, one person will still be able to update the school page. You need quality LinkedIn profiles for the principal, the senior staff, but preferably all staff, and definitely have, as I've just mentioned, a social media policy for both students and staff. I tried to find one that could be used, and this article gives you some clues on what you could incorporate in your social media policy. Also, make sure that when they update their URL, you add that URL for their LinkedIn profile to your school database. So apart from just adding their email address, you add their LinkedIn address to your school database. That way, if their email address changes, you can still click the link and try and reach out to them directly via their LinkedIn link. You also need to make sure that the people in all the different functions of advancement professionals do actually understand how to use LinkedIn, report, measure, analyse and review what's happening so that you don't waste time on it. So if you find that, you know, some things just are not working, well, let's not do it. Let's focus on the things that do work. You can also use it as a selection and comparison tool, you know, for the parents. So you may have to make sure that on your school profile you answer the questions that most people want to know about. So rather than just say we're a school and we're based here, go into a bit more detail. You've normally got a minimum of 2,000 characters in any description box. So go into the details about what you offer. And again, remember it's a database, so the more words that are in there, the more likely you are to come up in search results. And remember that students are going to look at it as well as possibly family members and extended family members. Also make sure that you're regularly updating it. Now, by regularly, I mean as infrequently as once a month. So it's not an onerous task, but I would definitely not leave it bare with nothing for 3 to 6 months. I mean, that makes it look like you're not active and you don't know what you're doing. So at least once a month. If you want to do it more often, that's up to you. Also make it easy to contact the admissions office and put your generic email in there. And also make sure that if you've got admissions staff, then you have some sort of policy on what happens when prospective families contact that person. Because you don't want the admissions person to have all the connections and the school not to be able to follow up with any of them. So there needs to be a policy if the admissions person starts connecting to prospective families, that they then transfer that family information into the school database so that can be followed up later if that admissions person leaves. Particularly with wait lists and things like that, you really need to get things off of LinkedIn and back into the school system. And also make sure that you respond to comments and inquiries as quickly as possible, because most of the social media platforms measure how long it takes you to respond to anything. So if you respond quickly, that's a big thumbs up, and then provide feedback to the other departments in your school and let them know what's going on. So for alumni and community relations, it's a relationship and referral tool. So really good for you if you're trying to choose speakers or mentors for particular programs that you're running at the school. So you can do some research and find some alumni through LinkedIn. And again, make sure that you've got a regular flow of information, but so that there's that quality archive. And even if the posts don't go viral, don't panic, but aim for about 5 likes, comments or shares every time you put something up. You can also consider creating a LinkedIn group for all the alumni. Now what I've noticed is LinkedIn has gone a bit colder on groups now. It's not as popular as it used to be, and the groups can end up with a whole lot of spam from consultants and sales pitches and so on. So it needs to be tightly managed. And the reality is I'm a member of a lot of groups, but there's no way I could keep up with all the posts. So I've turned off my notifications. So you can't assume that if you put something into the alumni group, that all of those alumni would be notified of it. So if it's a particularly important occasion, I'd still suggest that you reach out to individual alumni, not just rely on their LinkedIn alumni group and assume that everybody got access to that information, because they may not, even if they're a member of it. You can also showcase some community events and successes. You can ping individuals. So say for instance it was the Olympic person who won the medal that was mentioned yesterday. You can type @ and their name, and that will provide a link to that person and a notification to that person, and then they can share it through their networks. So that's another really great technique. Like for the awards last night, you could ping all the award winners or special mention people, and then they can do it. And also what happens is when you do create a post, there's a link to it. So if you're in charge of the LinkedIn account, you can put them all in a spreadsheet, and then you can send out emails to ask people to like, comment and share it. And then you can follow up in a month's time as well, and that can reignite the whole interest in it. So I'll just quickly show you that so that you can see. So if I go to my profile, and here's all of my activity and my posts. So this one was some research into Australian expatriates and repatriates. So if I click here, I can copy the link to the post, and then what I could do is I could email that to people, so they would just enter it in, and then they could automatically, straight from there, just go down and like, comment and share. Now you will get the most brownie points for shares. So if you have that link to the post and you email it to people, and very soon after people like, comment or share, that's the best way to make it go viral, if you do it very soon after posting. So be strategic about when you post it and when you're most likely to get that buy-in, and most people can respond and most people can like, comment or share it immediately after. So Deanne's been testing the difference between an article and a post, and native video in LinkedIn and non-native video. But from what I can tell so far, we can never be 100% sure because LinkedIn's not going to tell us that information. What I've noticed is that if it's liked, comment or shared quickly, then it's more likely to go viral and more likely to get more coverage. So if you can do that, that's going to work the best for you. And also provide LinkedIn training. So Caulfield Grammar School called me to their one of their parent functions, and they got me to do a LinkedIn session for parents, and that was extremely well received by parents. They had, you know, over 80 parents turn up this night just to get some LinkedIn training. So, you know, that's another good way to get them to start following the school and sharing the school messages through their networks, is actually providing the parents with some training as well. That can be really good for community relations. They also provided it free of charge, so a lot of the parents wanted to build their reputation and their brand, so it fitted in very nicely with the school ethos and educating family members as well as students. Also, in alumni and community relations, you can ask the principal to share a post. So I went to this event where the general manager of Twitter spoke, and she said that if the CEO of Telstra puts out a tweet saying we're doing really well, they've actually been able to measure that the stock price goes up, And if the PR department from Telstra says we're doing really well, nobody cares, okay? So if you think about this from a school perspective, if you've got an active principal who's sharing messages through their network, that's much more likely to generate interest than if you just put something on the school page because well, that's just the school saying it. So think about how you can get the principal involved, or the CEO or a board member or somebody like that who can also share the school's message, because when it goes out through their network, it might actually be more effective than just putting it on the school page. You can also educate the students whilst they're there to encourage them to start publishing some content and search engine optimising their articles. So creating really good titles, mentioning the school if it's appropriate, providing a link to the school, there's all those sorts of things that they can incorporate. Make it easy again to contact the Alumni and Community Relations Office and provide guidance to the staff on making sure how they do it. Now, one thing that is against the user agreement, and this is really frustrating to me because I believe data should remain with the school, not with individuals. So ideally you would have a fictitious person, and that would be the person who sends out everything, and that would live long beyond all of us staff and consultants and so on. But you can't do that. But University of South Australia has done it. And so I just thought I'll quickly show you this, just so that you can see what somebody's done. Now they do risk, because it's against the LinkedIn user agreement, they do risk it being deleted. But they've decided to go ahead with it. In fact, I'll just have to copy the link back into the browser. But you can see in this case, there's more than 500 connections, and they've called this person University of South Australia, and I'm connected to 40 people and so on, and they've got 1,443 followers. So I'm not suggesting you do this, but I'm just letting you know somebody did do it, but they're running a big risk by doing this. So that's why I say get the data off LinkedIn and into the school's database so that you can keep the information, in my mind, where it logically belongs. Again, have a policy around what you're going to do if alumni start contacting you as the alumni person, respond to all comments and inquiries, and provide feedback, so same as the others. Now, for fundraising, no way should you ever spam on LinkedIn. You will have your profile deleted. And if you send an email to 50 people, which is the maximum you can send it to, it CCs everybody on that list. And if you reply, it CCs everybody again. So a bulk email is not a possible option within LinkedIn, but you can personalise each message and send individual messages to somebody if you're connected, or if you've got a premium account, you can have in-mails which will go to selected people. So you really need to be careful about how you do that. And also, LinkedIn has been really encouraging you to advertise and send out sponsored messages. Now, all of the clients that I've worked with that have done that have found that they've got very low engagement. So if I can have a show of hands, how many of you scroll through your news feed on LinkedIn for more than 2 minutes a day? See, nobody, right? So why would you advertise in the LinkedIn news feed if nobody's looking at it? So I'm not going to encourage you at this point to pay for sponsored ads in the newsfeed because there's not enough people looking at the newsfeed. But because they've changed their platform over and it's more mobile friendly, more people will, so it's an option for the future, but right now I'm not going to recommend it as a way to spend your money on LinkedIn. And that's good, I don't work for LinkedIn because I can tell you that. So yeah. Also, quality information is really, really important, and also if you can align particular campaigns with particular groups. So if you did have someone who's a premium member and you sorted all the people interested in sport, you could just message those people, so that can be worthwhile. Consider the pulling power of selected alumni. So if you're looking for a fundraiser and you've got a really high profile alumni and they're going to be coming to your school and you can charge for that event, another great way to raise funds for the school. And again, what are you going to do with connection requests from potential donors, and make sure it's added to the database, update regularly, respond to comments and inquiries, and provide feedback. Marketing and comms. Again, quality information is key. You can do native video, but and it's really interesting, the topic of video. It's come up a number of times in the conference. Cisco is suggesting that by 2018, 80% of the content going online is going to be video, which is a really scary statistic, because another one says a lot of it's going to be native video, which means, you know, me saying, hi, I'm here at EducatePlus, you know, and yeah, well, it's just not my style. But I warn you now, it's coming. So get used to the idea. You know, you were worried about putting your details online. Now I'm going to tell you you've got to put video as well. But yeah, I really encourage you to still put the videos on YouTube, because it is the second biggest search engine. But if you do put videos on YouTube, there's one tip that I insist that you do, is before you hit the publish, you make sure that in the comments box, only the approved comments will be published. Like, that is a really important thing to do. If you don't turn that on, anybody can make a comment without approval. So if you're going to put a YouTube video on, make sure it says approved comments only, and then you get to choose which comments you want to appear next to your video. Also monitor your posts and their reach. So when you've got those links in your spreadsheet for all your previous posts and articles, you can follow up later, because if you recycle them, you can actually get more coverage and go more viral. You can send out those email messages. There's also a new product called Elevate, and a lot of businesses are going down this path now. It's called either employee advocacy or employee marketing. And it's a case of, so if the principal puts something out and then everybody else likes, comments and shares, it goes out to everybody in all of those individual networks. And most people know about 250 or more people. So if you think about the quantity that you can reach by going through people, it can actually be a lot more than just through the school company or the school university page. You also can encourage people to have a style guide for all the posts and the articles that you write. So a lot of videos, they like to put the watermark or an intro and outro. If you have content, you might make sure that everybody has heading 1s, heading 2s, put in an image, put in a video, put in keywords, all of those things. So if you have a style guide for any content that you publish on LinkedIn, that can be really helpful. Are you going to use hashtags? We're using one for EducatePlus. Everybody's told about that hashtag. So yeah, really good to have that in there. And make sure, you know, you make choices about what goes out from the principal, what goes out from the school. And also I make sure that as soon as somebody comments on anything I've done, I respond to that. So I don't respond to likes, because then I look, you know, needy, because somebody liked it. I say, oh, thanks for liking, you know, that would look really needy. But if they comment, I always respond. So definitely make sure you're following up that. If they share, I also find out where they shared it, and I like, comment and share. You know, I like and comment on that as well. Again, if your media contacts you, what's going to happen with the marketing team? Respond to all comments, provide feedback, same thing again. So before I get into general questions, the goals. What should you go home today or back to your schools and do? So definitely the first thing is a LinkedIn social media policy for your staff, students and families. Encourage 80% of your staff to have completed LinkedIn profiles that are actually connected to your schools. Now, the top brands in the world have a minimum of 60% of their staff on LinkedIn. So that's what the top brands do. So I figure that, you know, the top schools should be going for 80% of their staff on LinkedIn. Also, 80% of students to have completed their LinkedIn profile before they leave your school. And encourage new and existing families in the welcome pack, like us on Facebook, follow our company page. You can explain to families to do this. And, you know, if you ask them once, they may never do it. But if you ask them every year or every, 6 months, if you haven't already, please like our Facebook page, please follow our school on LinkedIn. It's all really great publicity, because the way these algorithms work, if I'm looking for a private school in Sydney and all of my connections are connected to a particular school, then obviously that school is going to pop up first in my search results, because it's based on connections and algorithms, and it's just maths, so that's what you've got to be thinking about all the time. Also, one informative post per month. Get the principal to share at least one post a month. Monitor your statistics on admission inquiries, your alumni numbers, your fundraising, what's come from it. posts, likes, comments, shares, the number of school followers, which is a live figure, so if you can just keep a record of how it's increasing over time and report it back to the board so that they understand the value of it too, and monitor the traffic from your Google Analytics on your website to say how much is coming via LinkedIn, so then you can justify the time you spend on LinkedIn, and then discuss and review your strategy every 6 months, because new bells and whistles are coming out all the time, but don't follow the latest shiny object. Make sure it's something that's going to work for your school. So like the advertising one, if people are not using the newsfeed, why pay for the ads? So you need to think about that. I've also dug up some more resources that I think will be very helpful for you, and LinkedIn itself has a section on LinkedIn specifically for higher education professionals. So for goodness sake, please check that link. It's going to be very worthwhile for you. There is also a group on LinkedIn specifically for alumni and advancement professionals. So if that's your area of expertise, you could join that group and find out what people are doing internationally on LinkedIn. LinkedIn for students, the LinkedIn alumni tool video, that's not listed video, but it's worth watching. It only goes for about 2 minutes, but it helps you understand how to find your alumni. LinkedIn marketing, and also the LinkedIn blog. If you subscribe to that, that will get you notified of what's actually updating on LinkedIn. Now, I'm willing to share a digital copy of my book on LinkedIn with all of you. So if you just email me or you drop your business card in, I will email that to you. I'm also videoing this, as I said at the beginning, so if anybody wants that, and the audio recording. And also I've tried to contact the National Library in Australia because I want all 3 of my books to be available digitally in every library in Australia. So I haven't heard back from them yet, but if you have a way that these books can be put in your digital library at the school, I'm more than happy to talk to you about that as well. And now I'm ready for questions before my time runs out. Yes?
Do you come to speak to schools?
I do.
To students?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any value, I've got 2 questions, is there any value in a premium account price? And then the other thing is, your alumni group, would you link that to your school page? Because ours is currently linked to an old goal and to my personal page, which is a little bit of a problem because I had it in the previous school as well.
Right, okay. So first of all, premium is only worthwhile if you've completely filled in your LinkedIn profile and you are going to use it. So I'm still on the free account. I don't need to attract any more opportunities to do what I do on LinkedIn. But if there was a benefit, I would definitely do it. So it will give you the last 90 days of people who've looked at your profile. It will give you the prestige factor. She can afford premium, so she's not on the streets. It will give you more search results. It will enable you to do emails. It enables you to sort your contacts into different categories. So there are benefits, but you have to be using it. I don't believe, it's like a gym membership. Once you give them your credit card, they keep charging you even if you turn up or not. So if you're going to use it, yes, but if you're not going to use it, skip it. Now, in terms of the alumni group, that's why I said before that you should have at least 3 administrators on the page for the school, and you should also have at least 3 administrators on the group. They're 2 separate functions on LinkedIn, so you can't literally connect them, but you can link, so you could put the link in, and on an Android phone, that will be a clickable link. So if I visit the school page on my Android phone, I can click the alumni group and it will go through, or if I've got an iPhone or on the desktop, I can just copy it and paste it and join the group there. But you might want to make sure that on all your alumni materials, you provide a link to both the LinkedIn school page and the LinkedIn alumni group, so that there's always that reminder that it's there. I'm also a big fan of the Google brand account, and if you've created the Mary Smith person, and that is the person that represents the school, they can link sites to all the sites that your school has. So on my Sue Ellson one, I link to everywhere else that I am online, so that whenever somebody Googles Sue Ellson, all of my other profiles come up. So that's another way that you can try and connect some of that data together and make more of it appear on the first page of search results. Yep. Yes?
I've searched some of our alumni,
Yep.
and they have listed the school as their alumni,
Great.
but then they're not coming up in the school's alumni
Right.
section.
Okay. Now that's because they didn't actually choose your school from the drop-down box. So they just typed in the name of the school when they entered education, but they didn't select it. So which school are you from?
So Roseville College?
Roseville.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
And we've recently just transitioned over to a university page, and I was wondering, is that the reason why everyone's not showing? Do I need to now send out another email to say?
You may. So if I start typing in Roseville, right, I need to click that. And if the person hasn't clicked it, it's just going to put the text in the box and it doesn't match the data. So that's why it's not finding them. So you would probably need to do 2 different searches. You need to do the search within LinkedIn, so print out your alumni list that's in the alumni category on LinkedIn and cross all those people off, and then do another search for the people who are not, and then message them and say, look, can you re-enter this by choosing Roseville College from the drop-down box. Then, if there's still some more people, you can go to google.com/advanced_search, right? Because on the free account, or even on the premium account, you're going to run out of search numbers because there's a finite number of searches that you can do. So then what you could do is, in inverted commas, you could write Roseville College, was it?
Yeah.
Yep. In inverted commas, and then you can go down here and put the site or domain linkedin.com, I typed that earlier, and then you can do an advanced search, and then you can start trying to find other people who were graduates from the school via the LinkedIn search, the Google search, and you're not restricted to how many pages you go through. And that's another great way to find alumni.
And there's, I might just add, that happened to me at a previous school. Another way is to get your alumni list, your database, send them out an email and say, great news, we're now on LinkedIn, I invite you to go back. You just ask them, go back and reset. And then, that's when they'll get the use school crest coming up. So when we did that in a previous school, it worked really well. So just, do a mail out. Great news, we're now, on LinkedIn, blah, blah. I responded. Any other ones?
Yes, so back to the university listings.
Yep.
I've often been confused by this. So the school I'm currently working at is listed as a education management.
Yes.
Is that the difference?
What's the URL? Does it say school in the URL? What's the name?
Redlands.
Redlands.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you've got is a company profile.
Okay, yeah.
So you don't have a university profile,
Okay.
or at least not one that's showing up. So then you need to apply for that. So if you go through the help menu, it'll show you how to do that, and you've got to write to LinkedIn, and they've got to go through a formal process and so on and so forth. And it can be time consuming. I actually managed to do this for the Australian Human Resources Institute, so we could get the logo on all these people's profiles. But, first of all, they rejected it, and then I, back on the advocate thing, and I managed to get it done. But for them, they're actually saying that they can't be a school. It's complicated, but you're a school, so you will definitely be able to get it.
So whoever set this profile up has set it up
as a company. Correct. So I wouldn't suggest that you delete it, because there's still value in having a company profile, but I would suggest you absolutely create the school, because then you're going to have that alumni feature as well.
With your company profile, you'll be getting all your staff will have your school crest appearing, but your alumni won't.
Okay.
And so it's great for staff, isn't it? Yes, Sue?
Yeah. But it would still be better if you had the school first, because then it all attaches to that, and it will still list the staff under the school profile itself.
So once it shifts across, would it be a separate listing?
Separate listing.
I think that's what we've got time for, but Sue's going to be
I'm here all
around
day.
today. So Sue's very, very happy to take any questions offline. And as you can see, Sue's very, very helpful. And I would encourage you, if you're sort of sitting there thinking, okay, I'm going to start this, and you get into it and you find you get stuck, it's definitely worth the investment to ring up Sue and get Sue as a consultant for your team or for your school, because the tool itself is free, and so it's really worth encouraging you again to use Sue as an important resource. Would you join me in thanking Sue today? hands, if I can, please put your hand up if you got one takeout that you can take home from that today.
Great.
Look at that, it's so extraordinary.
And I'm also willing to give these 3 books away. So if you put your card in here, I'll give somebody the whole 3 books.
And this is from friends at
Lovely, thank you.
EducatePlus. Thank you so much.